Hey, so now it's time for the file work. I went ahead, applied some layout fluid, and then I put a mark. So this is where our swedge is going to start. So I want to go do the file work all the way to where the swedge starts. So yeah, I put a mark every 8.5 millimeter, and then went halfway there on the other side and 8.5 millimeter again, which looked like, and I wanted to go all the way around to the front of the handle here where the index rests. So first step is to take a chainsaw file, round file, and make a hole or a dent or a scratch where we put those scratch marks.
Okay, so this looks like it would take forever to do. It's actually not that long, especially if you were careful in not hardening the steel in the previous steps. Also, one thing that's really important here is to be consistent. So make sure that you always go with the same angle when you file, and also go with the same depth, so it will look nice in the end.
So now that we have this wavy pattern here that goes all around the handle, and again I like how it's narrower here and wider here, so it really looks like the vine or the thorns are growing. Like that. Now we're gonna put the spiky part of the thorns. In order to do that, I'm gonna change. I had a round chainsaw file, and I'm gonna change and use a triangular file and put a notch in front of each of those half circles here. So in front with the pointy part, and then I'm gonna like work it a bit in an angle to really make a pointy part with the thorn.
So I just finished doing all the spine or the thorns for this vine work. And I put it onto 400 grit onto the belt sander. However, that was just like to make it show up so I can see some spots that I'm not too happy with, and I can just, it looks good, but it doesn't look perfect, so I can just make it look perfect so I can get back to filing.
So I went back to the spikes that were not spiky enough, and I went back with the triangular file, make it more pointy, and now I'm pretty satisfied with the result. I think it looks great. As I said, it's like gets smaller and bigger towards the front, so pretty stoked with that. Now I am just going to file the ricasso, and then we're going to be ready for heat treatment. So this is what the knife is going to end up looking like, and this is what it is right now. I'm going to put it in the heat treat. Some people like to grind some primary bevels or like thin it out before doing the heat treatment. However, I found out that Magnacut tends to move quite a little bit during the heat treatment, so I don't want it to warp or anything, so I just heat treat it full thickness and then just use some more sandpaper afterwards.
Here I'm making an airtight pocket with this specialized aluminum foil so that there is no oxygen in the heat treatment process of the stainless steel. If there was oxygen in the process, it would decarburize the carbon in the steel and make the steel not as good. So to achieve this, what I do is I use this specialized aluminum foil, and then I make a small pocket. Then I put a thin coating of baby powder so it doesn't stick, and it kind of burns the baby powder with the oxygen instead of reacting with the carbon first. And then I press on everywhere around the blade so it removes the oxygen and it makes it super tight. Now for the actual heat treatment recipe that I use is that I bring my kiln to 2100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll put the steel in there for 15 minutes, let it soak. And what this does is that it dissolves all the carbon, vanadium, molybdenum elements that are in the steel. And once we shock them by bringing it to a hot temperature, to a room temperature in small lapse of time, those elements will attach to the carbon elements and form carbides, which are super hard. So what you just saw me do there is when I take the steel, the blade out of the kiln, I bring it in between two aluminum plates that serve as absorbing the heat and also as making sure the blade is straight. And then I push some air with my shop vac to optimize this hardening process. And now that the blade has come to room temperature, it is time to put it into liquid nitrogen for about 12 hours. This makes a big difference between just a regular heat treatment and a high quality heat treatment, especially for those high-end stainless steels. It helps to optimize the balance of properties to make better ratios of hardness and toughness for those good steels. And basically what it does is that it keeps this process, you know, when we said we dissolved all the elements and then we make sure they attach to the carbon and form those hard carbides, it just keeps doing it even more than if we stopped at room temperature.
Cool, so the knife came out of the heat treatment, liquid nitrogen, and then tempering in the oven. Looks pretty nice. We can see there's a bit of decarb here, but doesn't matter. We're going to grind that swedge. And the rest of the blade heated really well, treated really well. Now we can test the hardness. I got some hardness files. They're heat treated or hardened to different hardness from 58 all the way to 64. If you just rub the 58, you see it skates really easily. Same thing with the 60. Same thing with the 62. And with the 64, it kind of starts to bite, but not quite. So looks like our hardness is around like 63.5, almost 64. It's almost as hard. I can feel that it wants to bite a little bit, but quite not. So it's pretty close to the same hardness as this file. So around 63 to 64 HRC. So that's going to be really good for this knife. It's going to stay sharp super long.